Good morning, everyone. We're continuing here in the words of the RAMBAM in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, Perek Aleph, the first chapter, Halacha Gimel. We're smack in the middle of here, but yet coming towards the end, and that's what we're talking about. That Avram Avinu gave over to his son Yitzchak. Yitzchak gave over the Mesorah, the transmission of Amunah, to his son Yaakov, and Yaakov Avinu gave it over to all of his children, the Shiftei Ka, the tribes. Now, in all of that transmission, he set up that his son Levi is going to be the Rosh Yeshiva, and he's going to have a yeshiva in which they are always learning the words of Avram, the words of Amunah, the words of belief in the Rabbi Shalom. And he understood, as long as there is no yeshiva where people are learning, then it will be impossible for this Mesorah to continue and transmit. And therefore he made a yeshiva. And as the RAMBAM writes, he put him as the head of the yeshiva, to teach the way of God and guard the mitzvahs of Avram Avinu. And he commanded his children that this chain of learners in the Beis Midrash should never end, in order that the learning itself should not be forgotten. And this is one of the sources that we have for the great importance of a yeshiva, of a kollel, of limud HaTorah. What ensures the sanctity and the nitzchias, the eternity of Klal Yisrael's existence, is that there's always Torah that is being learned, and there's always Torah that is going from one generation to the next generation, teaching over the lessons of our Torah, of our Amunah, of the previous Chachamim and the sages and the like. And Yaakov understood this. This is going to be the secret to our success as a nation that is going to be able to survive everything that we have to endure. And therefore, writes the RAMBAM, it was a given and a command that this must be what's going to take place. And this is the way that it went with the children of Yaakov Avinu and everyone that came around and gathered around them. And suddenly there was a nation that formed and existed in the world that knew about the Rabbi Shalom. And that was the point. The point was, keep the message and the mission of Avram Avinu alive, and make sure that there are people that are learning, and there are people that are growing, and there are people that know what it means to be a Yid, what it means to be a Maimon, to believe in Hashem. And therefore, this is the state of mankind at this point. Klal Yisrael has formed. We know from the story of Yosef HaTzadik, we're going to end up in Egypt. But even in Egypt, for many decades and the like, the Jewish people were on guard, and they were keeping to the ways of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Until the Golus, the exile in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, dragged on for a long time. And they began once again learning from the ways of the Egyptians, and they were serving idols just like them. They were commanded, of course, not to follow in the ways of the Mitzrayim, of the Egyptians. They were commanded, as we shall see, to stay in the small area, in the suburbs of Goshen, where they'd be away from the Egyptians. And in that way they would maintain their identity as a nation that believes in one God. But sadly, says the RAMBAM, they began to assimilate into the culture of Egypt, and as a result of that assimilation, so then they went away from the world of Amunah, of faith and trust and belief in Hashem, and they became idol worshippers once more, just like the Egyptians. Chutz v'shevet Levi, except for the tribe of Levi, she'amod b'mitzvahs avos, who remained in the command of the avos of our forefathers. They had the yeshiva, they kept learning, they were insulated from the outside world, and as a result, they never succumbed to the pressures and to the influence of the Egyptians in the country of Mitzrayim where they were. Have a wonderful day.